Several months ago, we had a ton of fun with TheOldNet's RS-232 serial Wi-Fi modem, which, after I hacked together a serial adapter cable, let us connect a bunch of old Macs over Wi-Fi to all sorts of online servers, including BBS's and even my favorite multiplayer online MUD. Well, Richard was kind enough to send me the newest version of the modem, which should have identical functionality to mine, with a number of quality and aesthetic changes, including a fix to my one and only annoyance with this device. So today, let's compare the old and the new, see what's changed, and instead of an old Mac, why don't we try getting something even older online? My 1983 Apple IIe. And since I already have an Uthernet 2 modern Ethernet card in the 2e, it's a great chance to compare connecting to the net via Uthernet versus a serial Wi-Fi modem solution. So stay tuned. And if you enjoy taking old machines that have no business connecting to the internet and connecting them to the internet, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. We have plenty more cool projects like this in the pipeline, including building a display for the Vintage Computer Festival East this year, and this very Apple IIe might make an appearance. Now, if you haven't seen my previous video on this amazing little device, I'll link to it right here, but here's a quick background on the project. Developed by the masterminds behind TheOldNet.com, this device is basically an ESP8266 microcontroller with a custom board to connect it to the RS-232 serial connector, and custom firmware that emulates a Hayes-compatible modem. This custom firmware allows you to control the built-in Wi-Fi and full TCP stack with Hayes-compatible modem commands like ATDT, including configuring the Wi-Fi and connecting to servers with those classic commands. It's very open and configurable, lending itself to all sorts of possibilities, and any vintage machine that could use a classic Hayes-compatible serial modem can use this device to connect to the internet. That's really incredible. Okay, so let's take a look at these two devices side by side, and my favorite new thing is the new and improved optional case. So this device comes stock with no case, but it had the optional 3D printed case, which is great, except there's a couple problems with this. First being the flash and reset buttons have little buttons that pass through, but they are impossible to get in these two little holes, which are at the bottom of the case. Almost worse, though, is when you have this together, it looks quite nice and you can see the status lights through it, but when you go to plug in your power, which this requires USB, micro USB 5-volt power, it just kind of pops out, and it's very fiddly, and if you accidentally pop it out, then the buttons are going to fall out, and it's no fun. The new case, however, has none of that because it's one long piece here with a back that is screwed in place, and even now nicely says TheOldNet. Yeah, that's a pretty superficial complaint, but I'm really glad that there's this nice new case, and honestly, this new case is really perfect. But let's take a look under the hood at the more important changes, namely the professionally printed PCB in place of the original's hand-soldered prototype board. It has TheOldNet printed on there with their nice little logo, link to the site, and I really like that there's a link, ADDT, to TheOldNet.com's BBS. So this looks awesome, and there's actually even instructions here if you forget what you set this to hold the flash button for 3 seconds to reset the baud rate. So yeah, very cool, and I really love this new board. Next, let's pull the Uthernet card out of the computer so we can compare it to the modem. But first, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an expansive online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators to dive deep into their passions and explore new skill sets. There's topics covering everything from writing to film, video, and art, all the way to business, marketing, and even lifestyle. I've honestly gotten a ton out of the film and video lessons, especially the excellent script, shoot, and edit from MKBHD. I've already incorporated a lot of those learnings into the videos on this channel thanks to these short hands-on lessons about things like planning visuals, shooting, and editing. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, so there's no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes, now including live classes. And to foster a summer of creativity, the first 1,000 new students to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So let's take a closer look at the Wi-Fi serial modem next to the Uthernet 2, because they both actually share a lot in common despite being very different implementations. They're both based on offloading network connections and the TCP/IP stack and all that fancy newfangled stuff to a microcontroller that has those capabilities built in, and bridging the connection back to something that old computers can understand. The Uthernet is based on the WiZnet W5100 controller, which, according to its documentation, is a full-featured, single-chip, internet-enabled 10100 Ethernet controller that contains a built-in TCP/IP stack and 16 kilobytes of internal buffer. It connects via an Ethernet port and installs directly into the Apple II's expansion card slot. TheOldNet's serial Wi-Fi modem is based on the ESP8266 chip, which is a low-cost controller with built-in Wi-Fi BGN and, again, a full TCP/IP stack. And it then bridges that connection to a DB9 serial connector with firmware on here that emulates the old Hayes-compatible modem command set. And I really don't think it's fair to say that one of these solutions is better than the other. For the narrow case of hooking an Apple II up to the internet, I think the Uthernet 2 will win by a mile, because it's a card that interfaces directly with the computer, so it's going to be way faster than the serial connection on the Wi-Fi modem. However, the Wi-Fi modem is way more versatile. While the Uthernet will only work on the Apple II, this Wi-Fi modem will work on literally any computer with a serial port and a terminal program, which is incredible because you just buy this one device and you can get your whole fleet of vintage machines talking to the internet, which is exactly what I use it for. It's a ton of fun experiencing the internet on so many different machines. It's also a lot cheaper. You can get the Wi-Fi modem for $35, while this Uthernet card costs double that. Now, before we can try this out with the Apple II, I actually need to get a serial port on this thing. So let's install this lovely Super Serial Card 2 from 1981. So unlike the modern conveniences of plug and play, old cards like this serial card needed to be manually configured, and I found this handy reference card, a nice 2-sheet deal, which explains what these dip switches should be set to, because basically you could use this serial card for 2 primary purposes. 1, to use with a modem, or 2, to use with a printer. And there was lots of other stuff that used the serial card, but those were kind of the 2 big use cases. And this reference card is kind of split between those 2 use cases. So I've configured this to the 300 baud setting, which corresponds to the default 300 baud that this Wi-Fi modem is set to, and that's incredibly slow, so we're definitely going to have to change that. I don't know if we're going to have to redo these dip switches, or can we change it on the fly in software? I guess we'll find out. So cracking into the Apple II is, fortunately, the easiest thing to do. Just lift the 2 tabs in the back and the cover comes off. And inside you can see our fine assortment of cards, including that Uthernet 2, which is right here, connected to this little Ethernet extender, which comes off the back here into this little Ethernet port that dangles out the back. Not the most elegant thing in the world, but it works pretty well. So we're just going to have to find a spot for our Super Serial card, and I think I'm going to put it right here in slot number 5. And then this is just held in place with the standoffs here. So we'll pop the card into number 5. Actually, we need a bigger hole than number 2 here. So I'm going to use number 7 instead. All right, there we go. It is connected and nice and solid. And I've got almost a full house of cards in here. The only open ones being number 3 and number 7. So there's 3 things that I really want to test out to compare the Uthernet 2 versus the Wi-Fi modem on the Apple IIe. First, I want to connect to a BBS, and we're going to use my favorite BBS, the Captain's Quarters. And second, I want to try to connect to my Quadra 950 running AUX, and also connect to the MUD that I'm serving on there, which is a multi-user online game, because I really want to try to use this Apple IIe at VCF East this year as one of our exhibit machines connected to the MUD so that users can play. And I'm wondering if the Uthernet 2 is the best option, which I think it will be, but the Wi-Fi modem might be really convenient because it works over Wi-Fi instead of having to run a cable from every computer that we set up. So let's pop in our IP65 Telnet program to try out the Uthernet 2 first to give us a baseline that we can compare the Wi-Fi modem against. And we'll fire up the Quadra, which I have unceremoniously stuck underneath my desk here, which will be in server mode, meaning that no keyboard, no mouse, and we'll control it entirely through the Apple II. All right, so the IP65 Telnet disk is loaded up, so we can do a quick B-run Telnet 65. And I've got the Uthernet 2 card in slot 3, which is what this program looks for automatically. So it's found our IP address here, DHCP from my router, and asks us for the host name, cqbbs.ddns.net, which is the Captain's Quarters BBS, my favorite. And port number, there's 2 possibilities, 6502, which is the Apple II version, or 6800, which is the Macintosh version. We could do either one, but let's log into the Apple version. And I remember my user number offhand, but my username is action_retro. I'll just log in with my password. And yeah, talking about the trivia that we just did the other night, live trivia, which I was a part of, and I definitely lost. But yeah, this works nice and smooth, and go to the forums, and let's get a list here. Go into the Apple II forum. We can read messages just fine. And yeah, hey, there's a message from Kai. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I'd say that the Uthernet 2 works pretty well for a BBS, which I already knew because that's how I use it. Okay, next, I'm really excited for this. Let's try to connect to the Quadra, and we'll log into AUX. So that is on my local network, 10.0.0.70, I think 78. Port num, telnet, so that's port 23. There we are, Apple computer. AUX on the Quadra. All right, it took me about 50 tries to remember what my password was, but yeah, terminal VT100, and here we go. We are in AUX. Switch over to the bash shell. That's pretty cool to see the AUX kind of screen fetch looking screen here, talking about we're on the Quadra 950 AUX 3.1.1. Yeah, so this honestly feels like I'm just on the computer. There's our mud directory. We can go into Action Mud. Autocomplete works just as fast as it would on a normal local terminal. But we are, of course, connected over the network. This is very cool. Yeah, I'm definitely nerding out about this. So I have my rungame.sh, which is just a command to launch the CircleMud server on port 4001, which we will now do. So we'll do sh run game.sh and an ampersand to put it in the background. And there it is, loading up our mud server. So once this server is finished initializing, I'm going to log out of the terminal on the Quadra and then try to connect to the mud itself. Okay, game is booted and I've exited from that telnet session, so now we can connect to the same local IP address, 78, except we'll connect to port 4001, which is the mud server. And yeah, there we go, Action Mud, and here's my ASCII art that I made for our game. So what is my name? It is Hork. Yeah, this runs great. I mean, it's fast, zippy, as if I was playing locally or on any other computer, and I just want to say, it's amazing that we're running all of this off of this 140 kilobyte floppy disk. Okay, so yeah, this obviously works great, and I've been using this a lot for connecting to BBSs with my Uthernet 2, but let's see how this experience compares to the Wi-Fi serial modem. Now, to connect this, we will have to go through what the computer clan might call some conversion technology, and in fact, 2 bits of conversion technology, because the Super Serial card is a DB25 connector, whereas the modem has a DB9, and I'm not good at math, but that's not quite right. So we just need this DB25 to DB9 converter, and then this is a little null modem hat because this needs to connect through a null modem cable. So, maybe not the most elegant solution, but it should work. And then we're going to use ProTerm 3.1, which, unlike the IP65 telnet, this actually is a program from the late 80s and early 90s. So first I'm just going to get into the program. So I got to pop in the other disk here, the program disk. Floppy swapping sure is fun. And now we just have to give the modem some USB 5 volt power. And I can see it already starting to send some garbage characters. So I'm just going to hold the flash button until it blinks quickly. There we go. And that reset it to 300 baud, which actually, I don't know why that's flashing like that. But we have the character sent here. So the software is already set to 300 baud. Let me just turn it green because that's a little easier to see. And let me zoom into the screen here. So actually the program is set to 9600 baud, which means that I had the modem already set to 9600 baud from when I was testing it before. So it's now reset to 300. In order to talk to it, we do closed Apple T to be in the terminal and go to online menu and parameters, and we just set the baud rate to 300. Make sure emulation set to VT100. Line status should be online. So now if I type in a command, yep, the modem responds with OK. So we can do AT question mark, and the OldNet Wi-Fi modem emulator is going to tell us all about itself. And it's quite slow at 300 baud as it very slowly prints out all of the possible commands. So what we're going to do first is just set that baud rate back to 9600, which is ATSB for set baud 9600. And then we just go to online parameters, change this to 9600. And I think we should be good. Yeah, that's much faster. Okay, so next we're going to connect it to our Wi-Fi network, and I'm just going to create on my phone here a temporary network. So I've got a mobile hotspot set up with the name Action Wi-Fi and the password Action Retro set to only allow one connection, so nobody try to come connect to my phone. And we can do $SSID equals Action Wi-Fi and $pass equals Action Retro. And as you can see, it's plain text here, so not the most secure. And then we do ATC1 to connect. And there we go. We've got an IP address via DHCP, and we're now actually completely wireless and mobile. And yeah, how cool is that? If I wanted to, I could bring my Apple II into a Starbucks and connect to my cell phone's hotspot and browse the internet this way, which I'm sure won't get any funny looks at all. So now let's try to connect to the BBS. The command is ATDT, and then the BBS's address, so cqbbs.ddns.net, and then colon, and then the port. We'll do 6502 for the Apple II version. And we're connected at 9600 baud, and already I can tell it is a bit slower. Oh, and there's a character echo here. So I jump cut to logging in because the character echo exposed my password, but we are logged on. Oh yeah, that's quite a bit slower than with the Uthernet too, but we could do it from a Starbucks, and that's what's important. I don't know what's up with this echo. Maybe in the settings somewhere in ProTerm I can turn off local echo, but it wasn't echoing before, so maybe that is just a function of the modem. And I accidentally paged the sysop. I hope he forgives me. Okay, so there's that weird local echo, but it still works. It's slower than the Uthernet 2, but I'm able to use the BBS. Let's try logging in to the Quadra. So we'll do ATDT 10.0.0.78, the port of 23 for telnet. Okay, so we have connect 9600, and then just a bracket. So that does not seem to work. Let's try to connect to the MUD. Okay, ATDT 10.0.0.78, port 4001. All right, so that does work. It's just a lot slower. Oh, now we do have character echo here. Yeah, it's a little weird. All right, so yeah, it works pretty well for the game, actually. Possibly a little bit better than it did with the Uthernet 2, just because local echo works, although delete doesn't. I could probably change that. So do delete key, send backspace. Yeah, that does work. So let's see. Yeah, honestly, if I'm going to use this Apple II at VCF East, I might use the Wi-Fi modem here just because it looks a little bit better with echoing the characters. Put this into color mode so it's nice and white. I don't know, green might be better. So yeah, a little slow, but I like that you can see what you're typing. So that'll do it for this look at the revamped Wi-Fi serial modem from TheOldNet. And is this thing better than an Uthernet 2 in getting an Apple IIe online? Definitely not, but I still really think that this is the best bang for your buck in getting just about any vintage machine connected to the internet and talking to your local network with minimal hassle. For a lot of machines with a serial port, this is just plug and play, and that is pretty cool. So I definitely recommend checking out TheOldNet, which is a fantastic website and resource for all things retro computing, and I especially recommend picking up this OldNet serial Wi-Fi adapter if you have an old machine or two that you want to get online. But that'll do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more retro computing shenanigans like this, please subscribe down below, and thank you very much for watching. And a special thanks to Chris Allegretta, Tom, Stig124, Justin D. Morgan, Chris Calderon, and Greg from Hurricane Mods, who are my highest tiered patrons, and all of my Patreon supporters for helping to make these videos possible.